faces.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to youtube.com/Rogformer. I'm your host for today, and I wanted to introduce a brand new way for me to be reviewing my content here forward. So I wanted to start off with a television review of Fargo Season 2, Episode 1. I wanted to do something a little bit more relevant and also just a little bit different. Here's my review.
Isn't that a minor miracle? That two men could stand on a lonely road and talk. While all around them, people were losing their mind.
Fargo as a whole is my favorite television show of all time, and Season 1, Episode 1 is literally the best episode of television I've ever seen in my entire life. But something about Season 1 as a whole, not just the first episode, really is something special. Originally based off of the movie of the same title in the 90s by the Coen brothers, Season 1 aimed to do something a little bit different, but still keep the same tone and ideals and metaphors and all this jazz from the movie, but still caving and making its own way and making something certainly special. Special is the way that I would describe Fargo Season 1. It is an anthology series 1, but it's also something that has so much depth and so much patience with its characterization. It isn't something that's just going to hit you on the head and be like, hey, look at this character's motivation. This is a show that is very subtle. It's very slow moving, but when it needs to ramp up the tension, it does in glorious, innovative ways. And it won a lot of Emmys last year because of it, and it deserved it. So going to Season 2, since this is an anthology series, is very exciting because this is going to be a period piece. Season 1 took place in the 2000s, 2006, around there. Season 2 is taking place in 1979. Of course, since this is an anthology series, this is not going to be continuing from Season 1. It's a completely new and fresh tale. Season 2 is very subdued like Season 1, but the characters in Season 2 are decidedly very gray, and you don't really know their motivations, who they are as human beings, if they're good, if they're bad. You don't really know who they are from the ending of the first episode, which is a huge change for the series because Season 1 had such very definitive characters and characterizations, and you knew what a character was, who they were, and what's going on, and what their game plan is for the rest of the season just from the first episode. And that was something very refreshing from the first season, but Season 2 also takes this idea and just twists it and turns it on its head. The thing you do know by the end of this episode, however, is how all the four main plot points are going to weave in and out of each other. There is no real main character in this season. There are four very different and very interconnecting stories that play off in this season. Of course, no spoilers, so I'm going to keep this very general. The first story is a mob story. It's a family-run business that is very tight-knit, that runs all of the trucking and all of the black market stuff in Fargo in and out of it. So that's a very interesting tale on its own. In addition, you have a rival gang of mobsters that aren't necessarily as family knitted, but they are a little bit more corporate and a little bit more shady, and they're coming together trying to take down the other family-owned mob business. So there's a war right there. On the outskirts of that, we have two other stories. One, we have the group of detectives. We have Lou from the first season, but now much younger, and his father-in-law, who is a detective. So we have a little bit of bickering there, and we also have them kind of coming together, a father-in-law and a son-in-law. They don't really usually come together. Sometimes they don't really see eye to eye. So the last storyline is very gray. It has to do with a couple that is coming together and has to overcome some very nefarious things that they have done and kind of move forward from that. Season 2, Episode 1 feels very light on characters and understanding characters and really knowing characters because it's just very, okay, let's tell you what's going on, who these people are briefly, and then what their motivations are. It's not necessarily a bad thing because I feel like this is what television does best. It allows people and creators to tell a story of complex characters over a very long time, hours and hours and hours of time. So there's a lot of time for the creators to really flesh it out. But in the first episode, it's just a different feel. It's not really as defined as season 1, because in the beginning, season 1, you knew who was bad, who was good, who was iffy, and who was going to fight the good guys and who was the bad guys. The acting is top notch in this season. I mean, we have so many big stars from many different walks of lives. We have comedians, we have people that are straight up serious actors, we have people from sitcoms, very, very diverse actor choices, but they all play off beautifully, and there's no standout actor necessarily. They all do their job very well to the point where they're invisible, and that's what an actor's trying to do. I feel like a lot of people kind of look at acting like, well, that person was the standout. Well, I think when a cast of characters just comes together and you don't really notice it, that's when it's beautiful, just like editing. And this is what I love about this series. Talking about editing, the editing in this season is fantastic. It was so unique, and this plays into the tone of this because it's the 70s. This is a period piece at heart. It does have a lot of tone with Reagan era, with wars, with all these crazy things. This show really delves into it, and it feels like it. The music, the groove, the people, the look, the fashion. This show is a 70s to 80s type feeling to it, and I really appreciate that, especially with the editing, because the editing has almost this 70s B-movie-esque thing where they split the screen in half and they show different things, and they're really showing your attention to different sides of things. They're really trying to grow the tension with splitting the screen in half and showing this side is doing this and this side is doing this. It's very cool, and it's like a little bit out there and it takes you a little bit to get used to, but it's fun nonetheless, and it's cool, and there's a lot of great sequences with it. The thing about Fargo as a whole that I've always appreciated was how it mixes not only comedy, but dark, serious, metaphoric tones, which are really right off the bat, with a huge Bible verse being reread by a person in one of the scenes. The metaphors are clearly there, and that's what's fantastic about the show. Another thing with that is that the show doesn't necessarily take itself too seriously, and it has a nice mix of that. In the first few minutes of the show, it is just pure kind of dark comedy and witty banter, and it has this black and white scene in the beginning that is so Fargo that it's slow, it's methodical, it's somewhat funny, it's just weird and out of place, and for what I know has nothing to do with the real main first episode, but it's just fun, and it has metaphors, and it's just a very good way to open up this series. And throughout the show, it had these moments where it's just like, holy shit, that's kind of supernatural, like that wouldn't happen in real life. Yet the show does it on purpose, not to be cheesy, but to show these over-the-top moments with juxtaposition, with two cops just at a Waffle Hut looking at a murder and just talking to each other about dinner and who's bringing what, and talking about how this wife is not really a good cook. So it's fantastic to have this juxtaposition of crazy, almost godlike things that are happening in the show with just very, very methodical talking and characterization. The look, the feel, the acting, the characterization, which I've said so many times in this episode, but the characterization is really perfect, and it really brings out this show, and it makes it different, and you can totally see where this season is going, and I'm very happy about it, because season 1, for all its amazingness, is very much like the movie. This is the season that I feel like they wanted to make. Season 2 seems like the story, that original story that they needed to prove with season 1 that they can make, and now with season 2 they're going balls to the wall hard and making something different out of the movie, and that's fantastic. I think this entire series has a lot to go with, a lot of weird things going on in terms of the editing, in terms of, illusions and supernatural stuff that's almost happening. I love it. I think it's amazing. I think Fargo Season 2 Episode 1 is a must-watch, especially if you've seen Season 1. In terms of scoring, I'll give it a 9.5. I think it's fantastic. This episode is fantastic. I'm not going to be reviewing every single episode from here on out, but I just wanted to say that this episode is really good. Everyone should be watching it. I appreciate you as well. Thank you guys for watching it. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you like this new format. I'm working at the kinks, trying to do more off-the-cuff things, trying to do more hosting things. Maybe I need to write down more notes. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Love you all. Bye!